Captured, beaten, starved, but unbroken. What does it take to survive as a prisoner of war? To endure years of captivity, knowing that every day could be your last?
I spent 12 days evading. Okay, I was very weak. I didn't have any food.
Then the pain started coming in. It was excruciatingly painful.
I saw the worst scene I ever saw. A GI without a head.
I thought I was going to die.
These are the voices of American POWs, soldiers who faced the unimaginable and lived to tell their stories.
Warning: the following stories contain accounts of war, captivity, and survival. Viewer discretion is advised.
As a private in Fox Company, Tony Gargano found himself on the front lines of one of World War II's most desperate battles. Before dawn, Gargano and his comrades prepared to launch a surprise attack on the German front line. The air was thick with tension as artillery fire rained down. Chaos erupted when their commanding officers were killed by landmines, leaving the soldiers without leadership in the midst of battle.
And I said, what happened? He said, the captain stepped on the mine. Then what happened? He says, my lieutenant went after him. He stepped on a mine, boom. And that we lost control because we got two good officers. Yeah, especially the captain.
Gargano was forced to crawl through a deadly minefield, following the footprints of those ahead of him. But even when he made it to shelter, safety was still fleeting. Encircled by German forces, the soldiers had no choice but to surrender after a failed attempt to signal peace. Captured and forced into a brutal 30-day march across enemy territory, Gargano endured unimaginable conditions. Food was scarce, and survival required seizing every opportunity, even if it meant risking everything.
We got on that little rope bridge. I looked over on the bank of the river. I saw the worst scene I ever saw. A GI without a head. His head was blown right off. That was sickening. Could you imagine this family back home having dinner, thinking about their son?
During the march, Tony used his Chicago wits to scrape up as much extra food as possible. His will to live pushed him through the adversity of this journey and ultimately got him home safely after being liberated by the Americans.
So I jumped off the train and got all the way home, walked in my house, and my parents didn't even know I was coming. They were shocked to see me. My mother almost fainted when she saw me. I couldn't believe it. I felt free. I felt like a big stone off of my chest.
On the 24th of April, we were attacked by a very large, superior numbered Chinese force of battalion strength, somewhat over 1,000 men. And it turned out that we had 88 men holding this outpost. The attack was ferocious. We were overrun. Hand-to-hand fighting occurred in all of the trenches. Very heavy losses were suffered on both sides. I was wounded 9 times, and 2 in the head, 6 in the legs, and once in the left arm. Very close fighting. Hand grenades, bayonets. I thought I was going to die.
That was the point when a Chinese gun aimed at him.
I looked up that barrel, and having been brought up in a family of faith, I knew what to do. I prayed the prayer of a sinner. Very quick, very short, not flowery, not poetic. Oh God, have mercy on my soul.
But instead of being killed, Private David Mills was captured by Chinese forces during the Korean War. Severely wounded and presumed dead, his family was informed of his loss, a message that rippled across the country. Yet Mills was alive, dragged away and dumped in a cave before being taken to a prisoner of war camp. Captured, isolated, wounded. For Private Mills, every moment of captivity was a battle for survival. Life in the camp was harsh. His faith carried him through the darkest moments as he endured hunger, pain, and uncertainty. Mills's prayers were answered, though his ordeal wasn't over. For months, he bore the physical and emotional scars of captivity. But after 4 grueling months, he was released, defying the odds. Mills returned home forever changed, a 17-year-old who had grown into a man overnight. The skies over Vietnam were among the most dangerous battlegrounds of the war. American pilots risked their lives with every mission, flying into hostile territory where enemy anti-aircraft fire could strike at any moment. For Lieutenant Michael Connor, the danger became all too real. Shot down during a mission, Connor was forced to eject into the dense, unforgiving jungle below. Alone, injured, and surrounded by enemy forces, his fate seemed sealed. But being captured was only the beginning of his ordeal. Connor was taken to a North Vietnamese prison camp, where he faced months of brutal conditions, interrogations, and an unrelenting battle to keep both his body and his spirit alive. In Connor's own words, he recounts the terror, the resilience, and the unyielding hope that carried him through his time as a prisoner of war.
We were on a mission outside of WWII and were shot down. The rest of my crew was killed, and I was severely injured, paralyzed on my left side, and escaped and evaded for a day and a half before I was captured. They gave me a crutch, and I was basically hobbling on one leg, and then the pain started coming in. It was excruciatingly painful. They figure I had a swelling of the brain from the head injury. And then I went through a series of camps. The hardest part I had was they kept me for about 2 weeks in this hole in the ground. It was on the side of a hill they dug in, and it was about 2.5 feet wide by about 2 feet high. I was on a bamboo thing, and they put me in head first, and I could barely move. And if I tried to roll over, dirt would fall on my face. There were mosquitoes, centipedes, snakes, rats, everything that was in that thing. It was just hell.
Connor spent 5 years as a prisoner in Vietnam, enduring unimaginable conditions. The physical pain from his injuries was relentless, but it was the mental and emotional toll that tested him the most. Prisoners were isolated, starved, and subjected to brutal interrogations designed to break their spirits. Life in the camps was a constant battle against despair. Captives like Connor had to summon incredible inner strength to survive the day-to-day horrors. They clung to small acts of defiance, hope, and camaraderie to maintain their humanity.
And I can't talk about the experience without acknowledging all the brave folks that gave their lives at that time, because it was clearly an effort at that point to try to get us home. But anyway, we get to Gia Lam Airport, and I tell you, coming around that airport and seeing that American flag on a TEL 141, it was just awesome.
As the Vietnam War dragged into its final brutal months, American airmen took to the skies as part of Operation Linebacker 2, an intense bombing campaign designed to force North Vietnam to release U.S. POWs and agree to a ceasefire. Among those airmen was Captain Peter Camerota, serving as a bombardier. The mission was like countless others Camerota had flown, targeting enemy strongholds in the heavily defended skies over Hanoi. But this night was different. 50 miles northwest of the city, the unthinkable happened. Their aircraft was struck by a surface-to-air missile, and the crew was forced to eject into hostile territory.
My very first thought when my parachute opened, was, oh my God, I'm hanging in the straps here, and Joy is 10,000 miles away from home and pregnant, because she was with me in Thailand when I got shot. So that was my very first thought. I spent 12 days evading. I was very weak. I didn't have any food. I was hallucinating. I was not sure whether I was awake or not. So I finally, on the 12th day, decided I was either going to die out here or I was going to give up. Now the code of conduct says you you'll never surrender of your own free will. Well, I don't think I had any free will. I have a pretty strong faith in God, I think. I have a great faith in my country. Always have. And the important things to me were those, and of course, and my family. And I wanted my wife to be taken care of. And I guess I've never lost faith in those things.
These 4 stories, though separated by decades and conflicts, share a common thread: resilience. From the muddy battlefields of World War II to the jungles of Vietnam and the frozen hills of Korea, these American POWs endured the unimaginable. They faced starvation, isolation, pain, and the constant shadow of death. And yet, they found ways to survive, holding on to faith, camaraderie, and sheer willpower. Their experiences remind us of the cost of war, not just in terms of lives lost, but in the scars carried by those who return. These soldiers' stories are not just history. They are a testament to the strength of the human spirit and the sacrifices made in the name of freedom. History remembers those who endured. Let their stories guide us, inspire us, and remind us of the price of conflict. If these stories moved you, share them. Leave a comment honoring these veterans, and subscribe for more untold stories of courage and survival. Let's ensure that these voices are never forgotten. And if you want to hear from more American heroes, watch the linked video to listen to testimonies of those deployed overseas during the Vietnam War.